Jake Morrison sat at his desk, staring at the strange symbols on his computer screen. The symbols looked like nothing he had ever seen before. They were carved into ancient stone walls deep underground on a planet far from Earth. His job was to figure out what they meant. The spaceship he lived on was called the New Horizon. It was not very big, but it was home to 30 humans who worked together to study old alien ruins. Jake was the language expert. When they found writing from dead alien races, they called him to translate it. Right now, Jake was working with aliens called the Vorthak. They were tall, had gray skin, and were very proud of themselves. The Vorthak thought they were better than humans in every way. They had been flying between stars for thousands of years while humans had only left Earth recently. "Human Morrison," said a deep voice behind him. Jake turned around to see Zeth Carr, one of the Vorthak scientists. The alien's yellow eyes looked down at Jake with barely hidden disgust. "Have you made progress with the ancient writing?" Jake rubbed his tired eyes. He had been working for 12 hours straight. "Some progress. The symbols use a base pattern I've seen in other ancient sites, but this is more complex than anything we've found before." Zethkar made a sound that might have been laughter, but it was not friendly. "Of course it is complex. The ancients were a great race, unlike your primitive species. Perhaps this task is beyond human abilities." Jake wanted to say something angry back, but he held his tongue. "The Vorthak only let humans join this dig because humans were good at languages. If Jake made trouble, they might kick all the humans off the project. I'll figure it out," Jake said quietly. "You had better," Zethkar said. "High Admiral Crixith grows impatient. We have been digging for 3 months with little to show for it." After Zethkar left, Jake went back to his work. The ancient writing covered the walls of a huge underground city they had found on this dead planet. The city was old beyond measure. Some scientists thought it might be 1,000,000 years old or more. Jake had always been good with languages. Even as a kid on Earth, he could pick up new languages faster than anyone else. That skill got him a job on exploration ships, traveling to distant worlds and trying to understand what long-dead aliens had left behind. But this writing was different. The more he stared at it, the more his head began to hurt. Sometimes he thought he could almost hear whispers in his mind, speaking in sounds that no human throat could make. "Jake, you look terrible," said a woman's voice. Jake looked up to see Commander Lisa Hayes walking into his workroom. She was the leader of the human team, a tough woman who had spent years in space. "Just tired," Jake said. "This writing is giving me trouble." Lisa sat down across from him. "What kind of trouble?" Jake was not sure how to explain it. "It's like the symbols are trying to tell me something, but not in words, more like feelings, and sometimes I get these headaches when I look at them, too long." "Maybe you should take a break," Lisa suggested. "Can't. The Vorthak are getting impatient. If I don't crack this soon, they might decide humans aren't useful anymore." Lisa frowned. She did not like how the Vorthak treated the human team, but there was not much she could do about it. The Vorthak had better ships, better weapons, and they had found this planet first. Humans were only here because they were good at solving puzzles the Vorthak could not. "What do you think the ancients were like?" Jake asked. "I don't know. Powerful, obviously. The energy readings Dr. Carter is getting from deep in the ruins suggest they had technology we can't even understand." Dr. Alex Carter was the human expert on ancient alien technology. He spent his days scanning the ruins with instruments, trying to figure out what the ancients had built down there. Just then, Carter himself walked into the room. He looked excited about something. "Jake, Lisa, you need to see this," he said. "We found something big." They followed Carter through the ship and down to the planet's surface. The dig site was a massive crater where the humans and Vorthak had been excavating for months. Ancient buildings stuck up out of the ground like broken teeth. Carter led them to a new tunnel that had been opened that morning. "We broke through into a deeper level. The energy readings are off the charts down there." They climbed down into the tunnel. Jake's headache got worse the deeper they went. The whispers in his mind grew louder, though he still could not understand them. At the bottom of the tunnel was a chamber carved out of solid rock. The walls were covered with the same symbols Jake had been studying, but these were different somehow. They seemed to glow with a faint light. "My God," Lisa whispered. Hi. Admiral Crixeth was already there with several Vorthak soldiers. The alien commander was tall even for a Vorthak, with scars across his gray face that spoke of many battles. Humans, Crixeth said in his deep voice. Good. We need your language skills. Jake walked closer to the walls to study the symbols. The whispers in his head became so loud he could barely think. His headache felt like someone was driving nails into his skull, but he could read the symbols now. Somehow the meaning was becoming clear to him. It's a warning, Jake said, his voice shaking. What kind of warning? Crixeth demanded. Jake read the glowing symbols out loud. Here lies the sentinel, judge of the unworthy. Let the dead remain silent lest the living face judgment. The chamber fell quiet. Even the Vorthak soldiers looked nervous. What does that mean? Lisa asked. Jake shook his head. The whispers were getting louder. I don't know, but I think we should listen to the warning. Crixeth made a sound of disgust. Primitive human fears. The ancients are long dead. Whatever they left behind belongs to the strong, not to cowards who fear old warnings. But Jake was not listening anymore. The symbols on the wall were pulsing with light now, and the whispers had become a roar in his mind. Something was waking up down here, something that had been sleeping for a very long time. And it was calling to him. 3 days passed after they found the warning chamber. Jake could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard the whispers getting louder. They spoke in a language that hurt his brain to hear, but somehow he was starting to understand pieces of it. The Vorthak ignored his warnings. High Admiral Crixeth ordered his soldiers to keep digging deeper. They found more chambers, more walls covered with glowing symbols, and at the center of it all, they found a sealed door. The door was massive, made of some metal that did not rust or age. Strange patterns covered its surface, and it hummed with power that made everyone's hair stand up. The energy readings are incredible, Dr. Carter said, checking his instruments. Whatever's behind that door has been powered for thousands of years, maybe longer. Jake stood in front of the door, reading the symbols carved into its surface. His head pounded with pain, but the meaning was clear. Don't open it, he said to Commander Hayes. The writing says this is a prison. Something dangerous is locked inside. Lisa looked worried, but High Admiral Crixeth laughed. Human cowardice. The ancients built weapons of great power. This is exactly what we came here to find. Jake's right, Dr. Carter said, looking at his readings. The energy patterns are unlike anything I've seen. This could be some kind of weapon system. Exactly, Crixeth said. And weapons belong to warriors, not to creatures who run from shadows. The Vorthak had brought special tools to cut through ancient metal. Within hours, they had burned a hole through the great door. Air rushed out with a sound like a dying breath. Jake fell to his knees as pain shot through his skull. The whispers became a scream that only he could hear. Behind the door was a chamber filled with soft blue light. In the center stood a crystal, structure as tall as a person. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time, with patterns of light flowing through it like liquid fire. Incredible, Crixeth breathed. A weapon of the ancients. Jake tried to stay back, but something was pulling him forward. His feet moved without his permission. The crystal was calling to him with a voice that spoke directly to his mind. Jake. Don't! Lisa called out, but he could not stop himself. When Jake touched the crystal, the world exploded into light and pain. He felt his mind being torn open like a book. Something huge and ancient rushed into his thoughts, filling every corner of his brain with knowledge that no human was meant to have. He screamed as his consciousness was pushed aside to make room for something else. When the light faded, Jake was lying on the stone floor. Everyone was staring at him with fear in their eyes. Jake sat up slowly. But when he spoke, his voice was different. It was deeper, older, and it echoed strangely in the chamber. I am the sentinel, he said in words that came from somewhere else. I am the judge of the unworthy. I have waited so long for one who could carry my voice. Lisa stepped back. Jake, is that you? Jake's body stood up, but he was not controlling it anymore. Something else was moving his arms and legs, something that had been asleep for 1,000,000 years. The one you called Jake still exists within this form, the sentinel said through Jake's mouth. But I speak now. I am the guardian left by those who came before. High Admiral Crixth drew his weapon, a plasma rifle that could burn through metal. You will obey the Vorthak Empire, ancient thing. We claim you by right of conquest. The sentinel turned Jake's head to look at the alien commander. When it spoke, there was amusement in its voice. You claim me? Little child, your entire race is but a moment in the span of my existence. I was ancient when your world was still cooling from its birth. Crixth fired his weapon. The plasma bolt hit Jake in the chest and should have killed him instantly. Instead, the energy was absorbed by his body, making his skin glow with soft light. Impossible, Crixth whispered. Nothing is impossible to those who understand the true nature of reality, the sentinel said. It raised Jake's hand, and Crixth was lifted into the air by some invisible force. But you do not understand. None of your races understand what is coming. What's coming? Dr. Carter asked, his voice shaking. The sentinel turned to look at him with Jake's eyes, but the expression was not Jake's. It was too old. Too knowing. The Devourers return, it said. They come from the darkness between galaxies, as they have come before. Every few million years, they sweep across the stars, consuming all life they find. My creators, the ancients, tried to stop them. We failed. Lisa found her voice. You're talking about Jake like he's not here anymore. Is he dead? Jake Morrison lives, the sentinel said, and for a moment, Jake's own personality seemed to push through. I'm still here, Lisa, but there's something else in my head now. Something huge. The sentinel took control again. The human's mind is more flexible than my creators were. Humans think in ways that seem chaotic, but contain hidden patterns. This makes them ideal carriers for my consciousness. Carriers for what purpose? Crixth demanded. He was still floating in the air, held by the Sentinel's power. To wake the weapons my creators left behind. To prepare for the war that is coming. The Devourers are already moving. Their scouts probe the edges of your galaxy even now. Dr. Carter's instruments started beeping loudly. Admiral, I'm getting reports from our long-range sensors. Something's wrong in the outer systems. The Sentinel nodded. It begins. The outer colonies will go silent first, then the middle systems, then the core worlds, unless you listen to me. Crixth was lowered to the ground. He looked shaken. What do you want from us? I want you to survive, the Sentinel said through Jake's voice. My creators failed because they acted too late and trusted too little. They fought the Devourers alone. But you have something they did not. What? Lisa asked. The Sentinel looked at her with Jake's eyes. You have humans. They are young, weak, and know little of the galaxy's dangers. But they think in ways that can surprise even the Devourers. And they have something else my creators lost long ago. What's that? Dr. Carter asked. Hope, the Sentinel said simply. The ancients had given up hope long before the final battle. But humans hope even when hope seems impossible. That may be enough to change everything. Jake's body swayed as two minds fought for control. When he spoke again, it was in his own voice. This thing in my head. It's changing me. I can feel it. Every second I become less human and more something else. We'll figure out how to help you, Lisa promised. But the Sentinel was already taking control again. There is no help for this. The bonding is permanent. Jake Morrison is becoming something new, something necessary, the first of a new kind of guardian. The crystal behind them pulsed with light, and suddenly Jake knew things he had never learned. He could see the locations of other weapons scattered across the galaxy, sleeping and waiting for someone to wake them. The network is vast, the Sentinel said. Hundreds of weapon platforms, hidden and protected. But they will only respond to one who carries my voice. We must begin immediately. Begin what? Crixth asked. Jake's eyes glowed with the same light as the crystal. The awakening, he said in a voice that was both his own and something far older. We're going to wake up every ancient weapon we can find. Because the Devourers are coming, and when they arrive, we're going to be ready for them. Outside the chamber, alarms started ringing on the ship. Reports were coming in from across the galaxy. Outer colonies were going dark one by one, just as the Sentinel had predicted. The war for galactic survival was about to begin. Jake had not slept in 5 days. He did not need sleep anymore, not since the Sentinel had bonded with his mind. His body was changing in ways that scared everyone who looked at him. His eyes now glowed with a soft blue light. His skin had taken on a pale, almost translucent quality. When he moved, it was with perfect balance and speed that no human should possess. But the worst part was watching his personality slip away, bit by bit. "Jake," Lisa said, sitting beside him in his quarters. "Talk to me. Are you still in there?" Jake turned to look at her. For a moment, his eyes dimmed and she could see her old friend behind the glow. "I'm still here," he said in his own voice, "but it's getting harder to stay myself. The Sentinel's memories are so vast, so old. Sometimes I forget that I was ever just Jake Morrison from Earth. We'll find a way to separate you from it," she promised. Jake shook his head sadly. "No, you won't. And even if you could, you shouldn't. Lisa, you have to understand what's coming. The Devourers aren't just another alien race. They're something else entirely." The Sentinel took control, speaking through Jake's mouth with that ancient, echoing voice. "Show her," it said to Jake. "Let her see what I have seen." Jake reached out and touched Lisa's forehead. Suddenly, her mind was filled with images from 1,000,000 years ago. She saw the galaxy as it was then, filled with thousands of different, alien races. The ancients ruled over them all, not as conquerors, but as wise guardians. Their technology was beyond imagination. They could build worlds, move stars, and travel between dimensions. Then she saw them coming from the darkness between galaxies. The Devourers were not ships or creatures in any sense she could understand. They were living darkness, beings that existed partially outside normal space and time. They consumed not just matter and energy, but life itself, turning vibrant worlds into dead husks. The war had lasted for centuries. The ancients had fought with weapons that could destroy solar systems, but the Devourers always came back. They could not be truly killed because they existed in dimensions that the ancients could not reach. In the end, the ancient civilization fell. Their worlds were consumed, their people destroyed. Only a few weapon platforms remained, hidden and waiting for someone who might use them better. Lisa pulled back from Jake's touch, gasping. "My God, how many are there?" "Millions," the Sentinel said. "They strip each galaxy clean, then move to the next. They have done this across the universe, for billions of years. But how do we fight something like that?" Jake's own personality surfaced again. That's what the Sentinel is trying to figure out. The ancients failed because they fought like ancients. They were logical, careful, predictable. The Devourers learned to counter everything they did. But humans are not logical, the Sentinel added. Humans do things that make no sense even to themselves. This chaos in your thinking might be the key to surprising the Devourers. Dr. Carter burst into the room, holding a datapad. His face was pale with fear. "Jake, Lisa, you need to see this. We're getting reports from all across the galaxy. 17 colonies have gone completely dark in the past week. No distress signals, no survivors, nothing." The Sentinel nodded grimly. "It begins earlier than expected. The Devourers have scouts that move ahead of the main force. They identify the strongest threats first." "What kind of threats?" Carter asked. "Technology, military power. But most of all, they hunt for anything that might unite the galaxy's races against them. They will try to divide you, make you fight each other instead of them." Lisa thought about this. "Like the rivalry between humans and Vorthak." "Exactly. They want you, weak and scattered when the main force arrives." High Admiral Crix entered the room looking angrier than usual. Behind him came Zethkar and several Vorthak soldiers. "Human Morrison," Crix said. "My government demands that you be turned over to Vorthak control immediately. The power you have shown belongs to the strong, not to weak creatures like humans." Jake stood up slowly. The Sentinel was in control now, and power radiated from his transformed body like heat from a fire. "Admiral Crix," the Sentinel said calmly, "you still do not understand. I am not a weapon to be owned. I am a guardian, and I choose my own allies." "You will obey or face the consequences," Crixeth threatened. The Sentinel smiled with Jake's mouth, but it was not a friendly expression. "Very well. Let me show you the consequences of thinking too small." Jake raised his hand, and every Vorthak in the room was frozen in place. They could not move, could not speak. Only their eyes showed their terror. "I could kill you all with a thought," the Sentinel said. "I could turn your atoms into energy or send you to a dimension where time moves backward. But I will not, because killing you would make the Devourers happy. They want the galaxy divided." He lowered his hand, and the Vorthak could move again. They staggered backward, gasping. "Listen carefully," the Sentinel continued. "In 6 months, maybe less, the main Devourer fleet will arrive. When that happens, it will not matter if you are Vorthak or human or any other race. You will all be food for beings that see no difference between you." Crixith's pride was wounded, but he was not stupid. "What do you propose?" "Alliance," Jake said, his own voice mixing with the Sentinel's. "Every race, every world working together. The ancients tried to fight alone and failed, but together, with the weapons I can awaken, we might have a chance. The Vorthak Empire does not ally with inferior races," Crixith said stiffly. The Sentinel's patience was wearing thin. "Then the Vorthak Empire will die with the rest of the galaxy. But perhaps some of you are wiser than your leaders." Zethkar stepped forward. "Admiral, perhaps we should listen. These warnings about outer colony losses are coming true." Crixith looked at him with disgust. "You would trust these humans over your own kind?" "I would trust anyone who can help us survive," Zethkar replied. Dr. Carter was checking his instruments again. "Jake, I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout the galaxy. It's like something is waking up." The Sentinel nodded. "The weapon platforms are responding to my presence. They know I have found a suitable host. Soon, I will be able to activate them all." "How many weapons are there?" Lisa asked. Jake's eyes closed as he accessed the Sentinel's memories. 347 major platforms, thousands of smaller ones, enough to arm every world in the galaxy if the people are willing to use them. "And if they're not willing?" Carter asked. Jake's eyes opened, glowing brighter than before. "Then they will die, and the Devourers will move on to the next galaxy, and the cycle will continue forever." Suddenly, alarms began ringing throughout. "The ship." The communications officer's voice came over the speakers. "Commander Hayes, report to the bridge immediately. We're receiving a priority signal from Earth." They all rushed to the bridge. On the main screen was the face of Admiral Stone, the head of Earth's space fleet. He looked tired and worried. "Lisa, thank God. We need you back here immediately. Something's happening in the outer systems. We've lost contact with 3 colonies, and the last messages we received—" He paused. "They were screaming about things coming out of dark space." The Sentinel spoke through Jake's voice. "Admiral Stone, this is the Sentinel, guardian of the ancient weapons. Your colonies are being consumed by advanced scouts of the Devourers. You have perhaps 4 months before the main fleet arrives." Admiral Stone stared at the screen. "Who is this? Where's Jake Morrison?" "I am Jake Morrison," Jake said in his own voice. "But I'm something else now, too. Something that might be able to save us all." Lisa stepped forward. "Admiral, we need every ship, every weapon, every ally we can get. This threat is bigger than anything humanity has ever faced." "How much bigger?" Stone asked. Jake's eyes flared. With power as the Sentinel showed him visions of what was coming. "Big enough to destroy every living thing in the galaxy, Admiral. But we're not going to let that happen." The screen flickered and went dark. In the silence that followed, they could all hear the distant sound of something vast approaching through the darkness of space. The war for galactic survival was about to begin, and Jake Morrison was no longer just a translator. He was becoming something that might be their only hope. 2 months had passed since Jake bonded with the Sentinel. He barely looked human anymore. His skin was now completely pale and smooth, like polished stone. His eyes burned with constant blue fire. When he moved, he seemed to float rather than walk. But the most disturbing change was how he spoke. Sometimes it was Jake's voice, sometimes the Sentinel's, and often it was both at the same time, creating an eerie double tone that made everyone uncomfortable. The New Horizon had become the center of a growing fleet. Ships from dozens of worlds had arrived after hearing about the ancient weapons. Humans, Vorthak, even races that had been enemies for centuries were working together out of desperation. "Status report," Commander Hayes said as she entered the main briefing room. She tried to hide how much Jake's transformation scared her, but it was getting harder every day. Jake stood at the center of a holographic display showing the galaxy. Red dots marked where colonies had been destroyed. There were hundreds now. 63 weapon platforms are now active, Jake said in his layered voice. But we need more time. The Devourers are moving faster than expected. Dr. Carter looked up from his instruments. Jake, these readings are incredible. Each platform is putting out enough energy to power an entire planet. What exactly are these weapons? Jake touched the air, and the hologram changed to show one of the ancient platforms. It looked like a massive crystal structure floating in space, covered with the same symbols they had found in the ruins. Reality manipulators, Jake explained. They don't just destroy matter. They can change the basic laws of physics in a small area. Gravity, time, space itself becomes a weapon. High Admiral Crixth was also present, though he looked uncomfortable. The proud Vorthak had been forced to admit that his empire could not face this threat alone. How do we control such weapons? He asked. You don't, Jake replied. Only I can activate them. The platforms recognize the Sentinel's consciousness. Anyone else who tries to interface with them will be destroyed instantly. Lisa stepped forward. Jake, that puts everything on your shoulders. What if something happens to you? Jake's human personality surfaced for a moment, and she could see the fear in his glowing eyes. Then the galaxy dies, he said quietly. Lisa, I can feel myself disappearing a little more each day. The Sentinel's mind is so much larger than mine. Soon there might not be enough of Jake Morrison left to matter. Don't say that, she said firmly. You're still you, I can see it. The Sentinel took control again. Commander Hayes speaks from loyalty, not logic. The human Jake Morrison is becoming something new, something necessary. This transformation cannot be stopped. Alarms suddenly rang throughout the ship. The communications officer called out, Commander, incoming transmission from the Vorthak homeworld. The main screen activated, showing a Vorthak, general in panic. Hi, Admiral Crixth. The homeworld is under attack. Ships of impossible design are appearing in our system. Our weapons do nothing to them. Through the transmission, they could see explosions in the background. The Vorthak homeworld, which had never been successfully invaded, was falling. Jake moved to a control panel and placed his hands on it. His body began to glow as he connected to the ancient network. There, he said. Platform Zeta 7 is in. Range of your home world. Activating now. On the screen, space itself seemed to twist around the attacking ships. The dark vessels, which had been absorbing all energy weapons fired at them, suddenly began to break apart as reality itself rejected their existence. Impossible, the Vorthak general whispered. What did you do? I changed the local physics, Jake explained calmly. In a sphere around your homeworld, matter from outside this dimension can no longer exist stable. The Devourer scouts are being forced back to their own realm. The attack on the Vorthak homeworld stopped, but the cost was clear. Jake collapsed to his knees, dark liquid dripping from his nose. Jake! Lisa rushed to his side. Each activation takes more from me, he said, weakly. The weapons are powerful, but they draw energy from the operator. I can't keep this up forever. Dr. Carter ran a medical scanner over him. His cellular structure is changing every time he uses the network. At this rate, I have perhaps 50 more activations before my body can't take any more, Jake finished. But there are 300 platforms still sleeping. The weight of this sank in. They had the weapons to fight the Devourers, but Jake would die long before he could activate them all. There has to be another way, Lisa said desperately. The Sentinel spoke through Jake's failing voice. There is, but the cost is higher than you imagine. What cost? Crixth demanded. Jake struggled to his feet. The Sentinel can fully merge with my consciousness. Instead of fighting for control, we become one being. It would give me the power to activate all the weapons at once. And? Lisa asked, though she feared the answer. And Jake Morrison would cease to exist as a separate entity. The person you knew would be gone forever. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. How long do we have to decide? Carter asked. Jake closed his eyes and accessed the sensor network. When he opened them again, his expression was grim. The main Devourer fleet has entered. The galaxy. Thousands of ships, each the size of a moon. They'll reach the core worlds in 3 weeks. And if you merge with the Sentinel? Then we have a chance. A small one, but a chance. Lisa grabbed his arm. Jake, there has to be another way. We can't ask you to sacrifice yourself like this. Jake looked at her with eyes that held both human, warmth, and ancient wisdom. You're not asking, Lisa. I'm choosing. That's what makes us human, right? We choose to do what's right, even when it costs everything. Over the next week, they tried everything. Different humans attempted to interface with the weapon platforms, but the results were always the same. Instant death. The ancient technology would only respond to someone carrying the Sentinel's consciousness. The Devourers continued their advance, consuming world after world. The few times Jake activated weapons to stop them, the strain on his body grew worse. Finally, with the enemy fleet only days away from Earth, Jake made his decision. I'm going to do it, he announced to the assembled fleet commanders. Tonight, I'll complete the merger with the Sentinel. Jake, no, Lisa pleaded. We can evacuate the core worlds. Find somewhere to hide until we figure out another solution. There is no other solution, Jake said gently. And there's nowhere to hide. The Devourers will consume this entire galaxy if we don't stop them here. High Admiral Crixeth, who had begun to respect the young human, spoke up. Is there nothing we can do to help? Jake smiled, and for a moment he looked like the quiet translator they had all known. Remember me as I was, not as what I'm about to become. And take care of each other. The galaxy is going to need unity more than ever after this is over. That night. Jake returned to the ancient crystal in the ruins. Lisa, Carter, and even Crixeth watched as he placed his hands on the glowing surface. Jake, Lisa called out, I want you to know you're the bravest person I've ever met. Jake turned back one last time, tears streaming down his glowing cheeks. Tell my family on Earth that I died doing something that mattered, he said. Then, light filled the chamber, and Jake Morrison began his final transformation into something that was no longer human, but might be humanity's salvation. The being that had once been Jake Morrison stood in the center of the ancient chamber, no longer recognizable as human. His body was now made of living light, tall and graceful, with energy flowing through him like liquid starfire. His eyes were gone, replaced by points of brilliant blue radiance that seemed to see everything at once. The merger is complete, he said, and his voice was like music played on instruments that should not exist. I am Jake Morrison. I am the Sentinel. I am something new. Commander Hayes stepped forward, tears in her eyes. Jake, are you still in there? The transformed being turned to her, and somehow she could still see her friend behind the alien features. I am still Jake, he said gently, but I am more now. I remember being human, Lisa. I remember caring about you, about Earth, about all, the small things that make life worth living. Those memories will guide what comes next. Through the ancient network, Jake could feel the Devourer fleet approaching. Thousands of ships made of living darkness, each one the size of a city, moved through space like a plague of shadows. They had consumed 17 galaxies already. This one would be 18. The final battle begins now, Jake said. His consciousness expanded, reaching out to every weapon platform across the galaxy. For the first time in 1,000,000 years, the full ancient arsenal awakened. On 1,000 worlds, crystal structures rose from hidden places. Space itself trembled as reality-warping weapons came online. The very fabric of the universe prepared for war. The Allied fleet had gathered near Earth, hundreds of ships from dozens of races, all united by desperation. Admiral Stone commanded the human forces, while High Admiral Crixeth led the Vorthak. Ships, even races that had been enemies for centuries, fought side by side, but everyone knew the real battle would be fought by Jake. The Devourers struck without warning. Their ships emerged from dark space like nightmares becoming real. They were not built of metal or any normal matter. Instead, they seemed to be holes in reality itself, hungry voids that consumed everything they touched. The Allied fleet opened fire with every weapon they had. Energy beams, missiles, plasma cannons, nothing worked. The Devourer ships absorbed every attack, growing larger and darker. "All units, fall back," Admiral Stone ordered. "Conventional weapons are useless." But Jake was already moving. His consciousness touched the first ancient platform, and space around the nearest Devourer ship began to change. Gravity reversed, time moved backward, and the laws of physics became suggestions rather than rules. The Devourer ship tried to adapt, but it could not. It was forced back into dark space, screaming in frequencies that hurt to hear. "It works," Dr. Carter shouted from his position aboard the New Horizon. "The ancient weapons can hurt them." But there were thousands of Devourer ships, and Jake was only one being. Each weapon activation sent waves of pain through his transformed body. He could feel his consciousness stretching, trying to control too many platforms at once. The Devourers changed their strategy. Instead of attacking the fleet directly, they began consuming the planets themselves. Worlds that had existed for billions of years were stripped down to their cores in minutes, their life energy feeding the dark ships. "They're trying to make you choose," Lisa said over the communication link. "Save the fleet or save the worlds." Jake understood. The Devourers were forcing him to spread his power too thin. He could not protect everything at once. "Then I won't try to," he said. Instead of defending, Jake went on the attack. He reached out to every weapon platform in the galaxy simultaneously, drawing power from all of them at once. His transformed body began to burn like a star as more energy than any being should contain flowed through him. "Jake, stop!" Lisa screamed. "You're killing yourself." "I was already dead the moment I chose this path," Jake replied calmly. "But my death will have meaning." The ancient weapons fired as one. Across the galaxy, reality twisted and bent as the full power of a million-year-old civilization awakened. The largest Devourer ships found themselves cut off from dark space, forced to exist in normal dimensions where they could be destroyed. But the effort was tearing Jake apart. His light body flickered and dimmed as he channeled more power than it was designed to hold. The Devourers fought back with desperate fury. Their remaining ships rushed toward Earth, intending to consume humanity's homeworld before Jake could stop them. "I won't let you," Jake whispered. He gathered the last of his strength and activated the ancient network's ultimate weapon, something his creators had built but never dared to use. It was a device that could seal the barriers between dimensions, permanently trapping the Devourers in normal space where they would eventually starve. But powering it would burn out every weapon platform in the galaxy and kill Jake in the process. "Jake, don't do this," Lisa pleaded. "We'll find another way." Jake's voice was growing weaker, but it was still gentle. "There is no other way, Lisa. This is why I became what I am. This is why humans matter in the universe." "Why?" she asked, through her tears. "Because we're the only race crazy enough to sacrifice everything for people we've never met. The ancients couldn't do it. The Vorthak couldn't do it. But humans, we'll die for strangers if it's the right thing to do." The ultimate weapon began to charge. Across the galaxy, ancient platforms started to overload, their crystal structures turning white-hot as they poured all their energy into one final strike. Jake's transformed body was burning away like a candle, but he held on long enough to see the weapon fire. Reality cracked like broken glass around every Devourer ship. The barriers between dimensions slammed shut, trapping the dark beings in normal space. Without access to their dark energy source, the Devourer ships began to die, their living darkness fading to empty metal husks. "We did it," Jake whispered, his voice barely audible now. "We actually did it. The Devourer fleet was destroyed, but the cost was enormous. Every ancient weapon, platform in the galaxy had burned out. The knowledge of how to build them was lost forever, and Jake Morrison was dying." Lisa rushed to the ancient chamber where his physical form lay. The being of light was gone, leaving only a young man who looked very tired. "Jake," she said, kneeling beside him. He opened his eyes, and they were brown again, fully human. "Lisa, did we win?" "Yes," she said, crying now. "The Devourers are gone. Every last ship." Jake smiled. "Good. That's good." He coughed, and she could see he did not have long. "Listen, I need you to tell everyone something important." "What?" "This won't be the last time the galaxy faces a threat like this. There will be other dangers, other wars. When that happens, remember what we learned here. What did we learn? Jake's voice was getting very weak, but his words were clear. We learned that different races are stronger together than apart. Humans, Vorthak, everyone. We're not enemies. We're family. We're all children of the same galaxy. High Admiral Crix had entered the chamber. The proud Vorthak commander knelt beside the dying human. Jake Morrison, he said formally, the Vorthak Empire offers you the highest honor we can give. We name you Battle Brother, Defender of all worlds. Jake's eyes found the alien commander. Thank you. And Crixeth? Take care of each other out there. Don't let my sacrifice be wasted on old grudges. We will not, Crixeth promised. Your people will always have the protection of the Vorthak Empire. Jake looked back at Lisa. Tell Earth I kept my promise. Tell them a translator from Iowa helped save the galaxy. I will, she whispered. Jake Morrison closed his eyes and died with a small smile on his face. The funeral was held on Earth, but representatives from across the galaxy attended. For the first time in galactic history, beings from 1,000 different worlds stood together to honor a single human. Admiral Stone gave the main speech. Jake Morrison was just a translator, he said. He was not the strongest, the smartest, or the most important person in the galaxy, but he was human, and that was enough. He reminded us all that being human means making the hard choices, even when they cost us everything. The memorial statue they built shows Jake as he was before the transformation, a young man with kind eyes and a quiet smile holding a book of alien languages. The inscription reads simply, Jake Morrison, translator, guardian, human. He spoke for those who could not speak for themselves. But the real memorial was the peace that followed. The various races of the galaxy, having fought side by side, found it harder to return to old hatreds. Trade increased, borders opened, and for the first time in centuries, the galaxy knew true peace. And in the quiet moments between the stars, when the universe seems most empty, some say they can still hear Jake's voice, not the Sentinel's ancient power, but the simple words of a human translator, reminding everyone that we are stronger together than apart. The galaxy was safe. The translator's war was over, and Jake Morrison's sacrifice had given every living being in the galaxy the most precious gift of all, hope for the future.